I remember the exact moment I knew something was off. Not suspected, knew. It wasn't some dramatic scene. No screaming, no lipstick on the collar. Just a dance. A single, stupid dance. Our company had thrown this rooftop party at one of those boutique hotels downtown. You know the type. All white cushions, glowing lanterns, overpriced cocktails with sprigs of rosemary poking out. It was one of those warm summer nights that wraps around you like a memory in the making. The city skyline looked like a postcard, and there was this soft jazz playing from some Bluetooth speaker nobody could find. Sarah was glowing that night. She always looked good, don't get me wrong. She could make jeans and a ponytail look like runway fashion. But that evening she was glowing. Her dress was new. A silky navy wraparound thing I'd never seen before, tied tight at the waist, hugging her just enough to pull the eyes. She said it was just something she pulled from the back of the closet. Lie number one, though I didn't know it yet. I was standing near the bar talking to a couple of folks from IT, not really paying attention to the dance floor. That's when I saw her with Eric. Eric. He was a project manager in her department. Tall, always dressed like he just stepped off a yacht, and talked like every sentence deserved applause. The guy had this weird charisma, the kind that felt half rehearsed, half reckless. I'd met him maybe 4 times in total. He'd always smile too big and shake your hand too long. The kind of guy who doesn't blink enough. Anyway, he and Sarah were dancing. And not like, haha, look at us, office party dancing. This was different. Slow song, minimal movement, but close, way too close. Her body was tilted inward, his hand resting a little too confidently on her hip. At one point, she tilted her head back and laughed at something he said. Her hand on his chest like they were in a rom-com no one else had been cast in. Something twisted in my gut. At first I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was a party, people were drinking. She was probably just letting loose after a long week. I sipped my whiskey, turned away from the scene, and tried to pretend it didn't feel like watching something private in a public space. But the feeling wouldn't leave me. I looked back, and they were still at it. Slow sways, whispering into each other's ears, fingers trailing just a little too long down backs and arms. Then they disappeared. Just like that. The dance ended, and instead of heading back toward the crowd, Sarah and Eric veered off toward the side of the rooftop, where a small door led to the service balcony. A place meant for staff smoke breaks and unloading equipment. Not guests. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I told myself they were probably just cooling off. Maybe talking about work. Maybe Eric had something important to say. Maybe she was being polite. I came up with 5 different stories to calm myself down. None of them worked. When 15 minutes had gone by, I made my way slowly across the rooftop, pretending to be checking out the view. When I passed the door to the balcony, it was slightly ajar. I didn't look. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop imagining what might be happening on the other side of it. At the 20-minute mark, they returned. Separate but close. Laughing. Sarah caught my eye, smiled like nothing happened. I searched her face for something. Shame, surprise, anything. But all I got was the same familiar mask. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, way too casual, and asked if I wanted another drink. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. She walked away toward the bar. As she passed me, I caught the scent of something new. Her usual fragrance is this light, fresh scent, citrusy with a hint of mint. That night it had changed. Heavy, musky, sweet in a way that made my throat tighten, like she'd walked through someone else's cologne, or maybe put it on herself. And then came the moment I can't forget. Her phone buzzed as she handed me my drink. The screen lit up for just a second. I wasn't trying to snoop, but my eyes went there on instinct. I saw it. Eric's speech balloon red heart. Just that. His name. A red heart emoji. She snatched it up like it was burning her hand and turned the screen face down on the table. Sorry, she said quickly, laughing it off. Work stuff. He's being a dork. I raised an eyebrow. A heart. I asked. Oh, she said with the fakest of fake chuckles. It's just an inside joke from the team. He sends that to everyone. Honestly, he's just weird like that. Lie number 2. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I nodded like I bought it, even managed to smile. But something inside me had already started to move, like furniture in an old house shifting under the floorboards. Nothing dramatic, just a low creak that tells you, this place isn't what it used to be. The rest of the night I watched her. Not obviously, I'm not that guy, but I kept catching glimpses. The way her eyes tracked Eric across the room. The way they shared little looks like kids in a secret club. At one point, I saw him lean in behind her while she was talking to a group, whisper something that made her blush. She lightly swatted at him and laughed. It didn't look like friendship. It looked like chemistry with a history. When we got home that night, she kicked off her heels and went straight to the bathroom. I stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing. When she came out, her makeup was fully wiped off. She poured herself a glass of water, kissed me on the cheek again, distant this time, and said, "Fun night, huh?" I wanted to say something, ask the question burning at the back of my throat. But I didn't. I told myself it was better to be calm, better not to jump to conclusions. Maybe I was overthinking it. We went to bed without saying much else. She fell asleep faster than usual. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Her dance, the missing 20 minutes, the changed perfume, the message, the heart. I wish I could say I confronted her then, that I demanded the truth, or scrolled through her phone like a detective on a deadline. But I didn't. Instead, I did what a lot of people do when they're not ready to face the answer. I waited. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But the truth is, that night marked the beginning of something I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't about one dance or one message. It was about the shift. The sudden feeling that someone you thought you knew had already started writing you out of the story. And once that feeling starts, it doesn't leave you alone. After that night, nothing was technically different, but everything felt different. It's wild how your brain starts playing detective the second doubt takes root. Suddenly you're not just living your life, you're watching it unfold like you're outside of it, second-guessing every gesture, every word, every damn moment. Sarah was the same on the surface. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, asked about my day when I got home, left coffee brewing before I even got out of bed. But there was a strange hollowness to it, like watching someone play the part of loving wife instead of just being one. And once the mask starts to slip, your memory starts to rewind. That dance with Eric didn't come out of nowhere. I started piecing things together, weird little moments I'd brushed off at the time, things that didn't seem important until now. And when I looked back, it was like watching a series of locked doors slowly open in my head. The first thing that hit me was her schedule. Sarah had always prided herself on balance. She liked structure. Her job in marketing wasn't the kind of soulless * king grind that demanded late nights. For years, she was home like clockwork. Dinner by 7, TV by 8. Then, about 2 months before the rooftop party, that started to change. She began working late. First once a week, then twice. Then it was 3 nights in a row. "I've been tapped for a stretch project," she'd said once, brushing past me with her laptop bag. "It's a great opportunity, but it's a time **CK. Sounded plausible. She was good at her job, always had been. But what I didn't notice at the time, or didn't want to, was how little she told me about it. No names, no details, no timelines, just vague. Then came the tech lockdown. Sarah had never been cagey with her devices. Her phone used to sit face up on the coffee table for hours. Her laptop was always open on the couch, Spotify blaring while she planned campaigns or ordered groceries. But slowly that changed too. First, the password. I'd never needed it before, but one night, I tried to turn on a movie while she was in the shower and found her MacBook locked. New password. No heads up. Then came the phone. Face down. Always. It followed her everywhere. Bathroom. Garage. Shower. She even started charging it in the bedroom instead of the kitchen, something she used to hate. Once I made a joke about it. "Since when do you need military-grade encryption just to scroll Pinterest?" She laughed, but her eyes didn't match the sound. "Oh please," she said. "Work's being paranoid." IT's cracking down on data policies. Lie number 3, and it wasn't even a good one. After that, the rest of it started to stand out. New clothes. Sarah had always leaned casual, jeans, boots, soft knits, simple elegance. Then she started bringing home cocktail dresses. Heels. Lacy tops. I noticed tags from brands she never used to touch. High-end labels with names I didn't even recognize. When I asked what the occasion was, she shrugged. Client-facing meetings. And a girl's gotta treat herself sometimes. Maybe that's true. But the odd thing? I never saw her wear any of it. At least not around me. They'd show up in shopping bags, disappear into the closet, and I'd never see them again. Not until laundry day, when I'd spot something freshly washed that I'd never seen worn. And then there was the perfume. Started subtle. A shift in scent. Her old fragrance, citrusy, light, playful, got swapped out for something denser. Muskier. Almost provocative. Not offensive, just different. Sensual instead of soft. When I commented on it, she played coy. "You don't like it?" she asked, tilting her head. "It's just new," I said. "What happened to the old one?" I ran out. Figured I'd try something grown-up for once. Lie number 4, probably. The old bottle was still under the sink. More patterns emerged. Tiny things, but they added up. New poses in her mirror selfies. Pouting her lips. Turning her body at angles. She never posted them publicly, I checked. But she took them. A lot. I once caught her snapping one before she headed out for a networking dinner. She blushed and said, "I like documenting outfits. Don't judge." I didn't say anything, but my chest tightened. Then the car thing. Sarah had started using the garage instead of parking on the street, which wasn't odd on its own. But one morning, I walked past her car and noticed a second charger in the console. It wasn't hers. She used a USB-C. This was a lightning cable, the kind Apple stopped shipping years ago. "Whose is this?" I asked when I brought it in. She barely looked up. "Oh, that's mine. From an old phone. Forgot it was in there. But I'd cleaned her car 3 weeks ago. Hadn't been there then. I let it go. I had no proof. Just questions that were beginning to corrode everything inside me. Still, I told myself I might be wrong. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was projecting. So I tried to reset. I suggested a weekend away, something small. I even booked a cabin upstate. But she **t it down. "Too busy," she said. "Works a zoo right now. Rain check?" I smiled. Nodded. Said I understood. But that night, I checked her shared calendar on our Google account. I hadn't opened it in months. She had blocked off 3 days. Labeled it, "Wellness Retreat." No location. No details. And it wasn't with her company. I double-checked. She had entered the event herself. That was the moment it stopped being suspicion and started becoming certainty. I began to watch the pattern of her life like a puzzle I was meant to solve. Each cryptic appointment, each vague explanation, each unclaimed transaction from wine bars downtown added another piece. The total picture wasn't clear yet, but the shape of it was forming. A second life. And then, finally, there was the calendar entry that broke me. A Sunday 2 weeks from then. Labeled in bland, corporate phrasing, Q3 venue check, vendor follow-up. Sounded harmless enough, but it was color-coded in gray, her private events. And tagged with a location. The Allura Hotel. Not a conference room. Not a retreat center. A boutique business hotel. I'd seen the place before. Rooftop bar. Private suites. No vendor events on Sundays. So I Googled the name of the hotel. My heart stopped when I saw the photo. It was the same rooftop where the company party had taken place. Where she danced with Eric. Where they'd disappeared onto the service balcony. It was all starting to loop. I stared at the screen, unable to move. It wasn't just that she was lying. It was that she'd been building the lies for months. Slowly, methodically. She wasn't hiding an impulse. She was cultivating a second version of herself. And in that version of her life, I didn't seem to exist. It happened on a Thursday. One of those weirdly quiet days where nothing feels real. The sky too gray, the air too still. I had come home early. Some power outage at the office ** led our systems. and they sent us all home. I didn't text Sarah to tell her I was coming. No reason to. Part of me just wanted the house to myself for a while, to sit in the silence and think. I turned the corner onto our street and immediately froze. There was a car in our driveway, a sleek, black sedan. Definitely not hers. It wasn't parked like someone dropping off food or packages. It was pulled in close, tight to the garage. Familiar in a way I couldn't place at first, until I remembered the work event a few months ago. Eric's car. My stomach dropped. I parked across the street. Sat there with the engine running. My heartbeat was thunder in my ears. The inside of the car suddenly too small. I didn't want to be right. Even after everything, the dance, the perfume, the secret meetings, some part of me still hoped I was wrong. That I was just feeding a narrative built on insecurity and coincidence. But there it was. Her silhouette in the passenger seat, and Eric in the driver's seat. The two of them facing each other. Her hand on his forearm. His head tilted toward her, closer than it needed to be. No words, just a moment frozen like a photograph. Mate, quiet, comfortable. And then the kiss. Not a peck. Not a goodbye cheek kiss. A kiss. The kind that carries weight. Slow. Intentional. Familiar. She didn't pull away. Neither of them looked around. There was no fear of being caught, no urgency. It was obvious this wasn't the first time. They were practiced. I don't remember getting out of the car. I don't remember crossing the street. I only remember standing on the sidewalk, watching her climb out of the passenger seat, like she didn't have a secret written all over her body. She adjusted her coat, smoothed her hair, and then, like some cruel joke, she smiled when she saw me. "Hey," she said casually, as if I hadn't just watched her kiss another man. "You're home early." I didn't speak. I just stared. Eric's car was backing out, slow, deliberate. He didn't even glance in my direction. Just reversed onto the street and disappeared like nothing had happened. Sarah followed me inside, dropping her keys in the bowl like she always did. She kicked off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water. "You okay?" she asked, taking a sip. "You look pale." I still hadn't said a word. I just stood there by the front door, frozen. She frowned. "What is it?" My voice came out lower than I expected. Flat. "You kissed him." Her hand tightened around the glass. "What?" "I saw you," I said. "In the driveway. In his car." There was a beat. A single heartbeat of silence where I thought maybe, she'd own it. Then she laughed. Laughed. "Oh my God, Mark. Are you serious? That was a goodbye kiss. Not even a real one. He's going away for a leadership summit and we were saying goodbye." "Don't," I said, my voice sharp. "Don't make me feel crazy. I saw it." She tilted her head, trying to sound calm. "You're reading into things again. Again. Like this was my pattern. Like I was the one twisting the narrative." I didn't respond. I just walked past her, straight to the living room, and picked up her phone from the table. She hadn't locked it. Maybe she was distracted. Maybe she just didn't think she needed to anymore. The messaging app was still open. And there it was. A string of messages from Eric, sent just that morning. "Eric. Miss you already. Last night was perfect. Eric. Still thinking about that view from the window. And you in it. Eric. Did you save the photo I sent?" Below it, a blurred thumbnail. A hotel room. Dim lighting. She in the foreground, half wrapped in a sheet. Not explicit, but in asterisk made enough that I didn't need details. The rest of the conversation was just as damning: plans, inside jokes, pet names. Mentions of getting away again soon. Not one word about work. I felt sick. Sarah had walked in behind me, frozen mid-step. She saw the screen in my hand. Her mouth opened like she was about to speak, but no words came out. I turned the screen toward her. "Still think I'm reading into it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. "Don't," I snapped. "Don't insult me with another lie." Silence again. Then, quietly, almost inaudibly, "I didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed. Bitter, exhausted, broken. "That's what you've got?" That's your line? She looked down at the floor, said nothing. The rage didn't come like I expected. No yelling, no smashing plates, just cold, hollow realization. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a relationship. Something she'd nurtured and built behind my back while pretending our life was still intact. And maybe that was the worst part. Not the kiss. Not the messages. Not even the hotel. It was the fact that she came home each night, smiled at me, asked about my day, and pretended nothing had changed. That's not a mistake. That's cruelty. I stood there for a long time, staring at her like she was someone I'd never seen before. And in a way, she was. The Sarah I knew or thought I knew wouldn't have done this. But this version, the one who looked me in the eye and said nothing while a string of love notes from another man sat on her screen, I didn't know her at all. Eventually, I spoke. How long? She looked up, startled. What? How long has it been going on? She hesitated. A few months. I nodded slowly. Before the rooftop party? She swallowed. Yes, there it was. The full circle. The moment I had dreaded confirming, that everything I'd suspected was true, and that it had been true for longer than I knew. I handed her the phone, walked past her, out the door, into the cool air, where everything felt clearer than it had in weeks. And for the first time in a long time, I realized something. I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. The next morning, it was as if nothing had happened. Sarah woke up early. I heard the soft clatter of her moving through the kitchen, the familiar sound of the coffee grinder echoing down the hall. When I walked in, bleary-eyed and dead inside, she was already pouring 2 mugs. One for her, one for me. She smiled. Actually smiled. Like it was just another Thursday. Morning, she said, voice light, as if the day before hadn't detonated the ground beneath us. I stared at her. Not a word. She pushed the mug toward me. I used the Ethiopian roast. I know it's your favorite. The scent was nauseating. I didn't touch it. Don't do this, I said finally, my voice hoarse. She blinked at me. Do what? This performance. Sarah paused, hand hovering over her own cup. She let out a small laugh, nervous but practiced. I'm just trying to make things normal. They're not. I know. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I thought she might drop the act. But then she recovered, smoothed her expression, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But we still have to live, eat, talk. We can't just freeze. Actually, I said, pushing the coffee back toward her. We can. The conversation ended there. She busied herself with dishes that didn't need washing, humming along to a song playing low from her phone. I watched her from the doorway, not with anger anymore, that had curdled into something quieter, cold, analytical. I was done playing the role of the wounded spouse waiting for a confession. She'd made her choices. Now it was my turn. That afternoon, I began the process of what I now think of as the quiet exit. No yelling, no confrontation, just information. I started compiling. First, I exported the text thread I had seen between her and Eric before she could delete it. *TS. PDFs. Metadata, timestamps, anything that could be useful later. I emailed it to a private account, disconnected from our shared digital life. Then I went through our joint financial accounts. Months of subtle transactions suddenly had context. $178 at an upscale seafood place she said was a client lunch. $46 at a wine bar near his office. Charges from boutique hotel bars under obscure vendor descriptions. One stood out. A midweek Uber from her office to an address I didn't recognize. I Googled it. Condo complex. Eric's. All of it quietly archived. No reaction. No confrontation. I even started syncing our shared calendar into a spreadsheet. I marked discrepancies between her official appointments and bank activity. Meetings she claimed to attend that didn't align with traffic data from her phone's location history. I'd installed an app months ago to help find her phone when she left it places. I never thought I'd be using it to map betrayal. But none of it surprised me anymore. If anything, the precision of her double life impressed me. She wasn't just cheating. She was managing it. Schedules, covers, logistics. She wore the affair like a second skin. Seamless. That was the part one couldn't stop thinking about. She wasn't sorry. Not really. Not in the way people are when they've made a single stupid mistake. This wasn't impulsive. It was engineered. And now, even with the truth exposed, she was trying to polish the surface of our life to keep it shining. To everyone else, we still looked perfect. Even that weekend, when her parents came over for brunch, part of some long-standing family ritual, she acted like nothing had changed. She put out the good plates, made her spinach frittata, dressed in that soft beige sweater her mom always complimented. I watched her pour orange juice, chat about the neighbor's new puppy, and laugh at her dad's jokes, all while knowing she had a second phone hidden somewhere in her car, one I'd discovered charging behind the emergency kit 2 days before. That burner phone was the final crack in her porcelain act. She had named Eric E. That's it. Just one letter. Enough to hide in plain sight. There were messages on it, not many, but enough. Voice notes, photos, a booking confirmation for a wine-tasting weekend in Seattle 2 months from now. Under both their names. I wasn't mentioned once. I don't think I existed in that version of her life. But inside our home, she was doubling down. Every moment dripped with overcorrection. Kisses on the cheek. Long hugs. Questions about my day. Offers to cook. Compliments on my appearance. Like she was trying to sand down the sharp edges she'd carved into our marriage. I kept my face neutral. I played the part. Nodded. Thanked her. Ate the food. Let her lean on me during a movie night like she always had. I even pretended to laugh. But beneath it all, I was planning. I wasn't going to scream or beg. I wasn't going to break dishes or throw ultimatums. That would just give her more control, make me the erratic one. I could see it already how she might twist the narrative. Mark overreacted. He couldn't handle it. I told him I wanted to fix things. So instead, I stayed quiet. At work, I started moving pieces, transferring part of my direct deposit into a separate account. Met with a lawyer low-key after hours. Told a couple of close friends, not to gossip but to prepare. I asked one of them, a former coworker now working in security, to pull footage from that rooftop party if they still had it. They did. It wasn't just the dance. The video, grainy, time-stamped, showed Sarah and Eric sneaking off to the service balcony. They weren't just talking. You could see them pressed against the wall, her hands in his hair, laughing, kissing, in full view of at least 2 other coworkers who walked past and pretended not to see. It had been public, shameless, ongoing, and that was when I stopped hoping for remorse. She wasn't hiding it to protect me. She was hiding it to preserve her options. A few days later, I walked into our closet to grab a sweater and found something I hadn't noticed before. A folder, tucked behind an old box of scarves. It was labeled with the name of a design agency I didn't recognize. Inside were mock-ups, logos, color palettes, interior sketches. A boutique wine bar. There were printed floor plans of a space in Seattle. Business card drafts. Photos of a rooftop pool. Her name and Eric's appeared together on every single document. Founders and managing partners. It wasn't a fling. It was a future, a whole life she was building, a life I had no part in. And still, every morning, she kissed me goodbye. Still, every night, she slid into bed beside me and rested her head on my chest. Still, she smiled. Still, she pretended. And I let her, because soon, it would be her turn to discover what silence can really say. There's something eerie about watching someone act normal when you know they're living a lie. It's like sitting front row at a play where the actor forgets you've read the script. Sarah continued her performance flawlessly. Early riser, attentive wife, planner of meals, hummer of songs. But I no longer watched her as her husband. I watched her like a scientist watches a specimen. The more affectionate she became, the more obvious it was. She knew I knew, but she didn't know how much. And that made her dangerous. She stopped locking her phone, started initiating more physical affection, even made a show of deleting apps she Wasn't using. She never mentioned Eric again. Not once. No slip-ups. No signs of remorse. Just a rehearsed script of subtle reconciliation, as if the right rhythm of smiles and routines could undo betrayal. But I saw through all of it. I continued collecting. I backed up every calendar entry, every suspicious location ping. The burner phone had been wiped clean 2 days after I discovered it, but not before I'd cloned its contents. I had enough now to ruin her credibility, both personally and professionally. I didn't plan on using it, not unless she forced my hand. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for release. That week, I started sleeping in the guest room. I told her I wasn't feeling well, stress, headaches, whatever. She accepted it too quickly, too relieved, like she'd been waiting for me to step away so she could regroup. On Thursday, I came home to find her cooking dinner, music on, apron tied in a bow like she was auditioning for some home-cooked fantasy. I walked past her and noticed her laptop open on the counter. Unlocked. Curiosity didn't drive me, clarity did. The folder was buried in plain sight this time. Labeled something like, Budget Drafts, Q3. Innocent to anyone glancing through. But inside were all the same photos I'd seen in the hidden folder before, layouts, mood boards, branding decks. One slide showed a mock website header. Estelle, a wine bar experience. Seattle. Opening winter. Below that, concept by Sarah Langley and Eric Hoffman. My stomach tightened. Seeing it in print was different. Final. Real. I clicked back and found exported messages saved as PDFs. Personal ones. Not from Eric. These were messages with her best friend, Ava. And that's where the final layer unraveled. He's everything Mark isn't. Confident. Direct. He listens. He sees me. I used to think it would just be harmless fun. But now I can't imagine my life without Eric. We click. Mark would never survive in Seattle anyway. He's too attached to this place, to his routine. That life isn't for him. That life. The one she was building without me. I kept scrolling. More confessions. Plans. **TS of albums she was scouting. Photos from hotel rooms I had never seen. A spreadsheet outlining estimated startup costs. Line items for branding, furniture, legal consultation. One section titled, Logistics for Transition, had bullet points. Lease ends in March. Align timeline. Move Mark's name off joint assets. Lawyer referral from Aaron. Keep quiet. Mental health narrative if needed. Frame conversation around mutual growth. She had a script for leaving me. She just hadn't delivered the lines yet. That's when something in me snapped. Not in an explosive way. Not fire. More like glass cracking cleanly under pressure. I realized I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was just done. She didn't plan to end our marriage because it was broken. She planned to outgrow it, to rebrand it, to leave me gently behind like an old coat she'd outworn. That night I made a list. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it, but I knew I needed it. Evidence secured. Heavy checkmark burner phone clone. Heavy checkmark exported texts from her main phone. Heavy checkmark calendar discrepancies. Heavy checkmark financial statements. Flagged transactions. Heavy checkmark photos from rooftop party. Thanks, Sam. Heavy checkmark, Estelle, branding folder. Heavy checkmark messages with Ava. Heavy checkmark footage of driveway kiss. Legal readiness. Heavy checkmark lawyer retained. Heavy checkmark initial strategy call completed. Heavy checkmark bank account separation underway. Heavy checkmark mail redirected to P.O. Box. Heavy checkmark emergency credit card activated. Logistics. Heavy checkmark lease for studio signed. Move-in date next week. Heavy checkmark storage unit secured. Heavy checkmark luggage packed and hidden. Heavy checkmark personal items boxed. Labeled. Unmarked. Heavy checkmark work schedule adjusted for flexibility. Heavy checkmark copies of key documents in cloud. It sounds clinical, I know. But when you're dealing with emotional chaos, clarity is the only antidote. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. The more people involved, the more chance she'd catch wind of it. I was methodical, quiet, Careful. She wasn't going to see it coming. Just like I hadn't. The next few days passed like I was living someone else's life. Sarah started talking about planning a trip together. Somewhere warm. Maybe Costa Rica. We need a reset, she said. A chance to reconnect. She cupped my hand when she said it, as if we were a couple trying to reignite a spark. All I could think was, you're trying to book a trip with the man you're about to ghost. I nodded, said it sounded nice. She smiled. On Saturday, I went to the studio I'd signed for, just a small one-bedroom. Enough space for a bed and a desk. Empty walls. Fresh air. Quiet. It felt like stepping into the part of my life that had been waiting for me to claim it. I stayed there for hours. Sat on the floor. No furniture. Just me and the echo of everything I'd carried for too long. And then, almost like the universe had been waiting for me to fully let go, I got a message. From Sam. The coworker who'd sent me the original rooftop video. Hey man, you should see this. Just dropped in our Slack channel. People are not even trying to hide anymore, lol. Attached was a short video clip. Same rooftop. Same party. Only this time it wasn't security footage. It was handheld. Shaky. A coworker recording a slow pan of the party, and right in the middle Sarah and Eric. Kissing. Not hidden. Not even discreet. Broad daylight. Drinks in hand. Other people watching. Laughing. I zoomed in. You could see their names on their lanyards. My chest didn't even ache this time. I just shook my head and whispered, "You wanted this." It was the missing piece. Proof that it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't even a secret in her world. Just in mine. The next day, I sent Sam a short message. "Thanks. I owe you." I downloaded the video. Saved it. Labeled it Closure. MP4. Back home that evening, Sarah was curled up on the couch. A glass of red in her hand. Candles lit. She looked relaxed, like someone who thought they'd successfully defused a bomb they never expected to detonate. "Movie night?" she asked. I smiled. "Sure." She looked pleased with herself. Like we were healing. But in my mind, I was already gone. By this time next week, I would be gone for real. The more she played perfect, the more I disconnected. I finalized my plan. Documents packed, lease signed, keys returned. I left quietly one morning, no fight, no warning. Just a note on the counter, "You already moved on. I'm just catching up." I blocked her number, shut off joint accounts, and walked into a new life, free of pretending. Days later, a coworker sent footage of their rooftop kiss. Months before she claimed anything started. That was my final confirmation. I never responded to her calls. I signed my new lease, filed for divorce, and rebuilt in silence. I didn't need revenge. I had peace. Let her explain my absence however she wants. I'm not part of her performance anymore.